Good thing when you own your own business, isn't
Okay.
it?
All right, good evening. I am going to call the Plan Commission meeting to order Tuesday, August 6th, 2019, at 6 p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call.
Commissioner Graff. Here. Commissioner Oliver. Here. Alderman Kubaki. Here. Mayor Shiverati.
Here.
Commissioner Jocks.
Here.
Commissioner Buckmaster. Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Planner Tresbietowski.
Here.
Okay, I'd like to take a quick moment and thank Paul Pearden, who served on the Plan Commission but had to step down due to a very hectic schedule he has these days, and I want to welcome Mark Oliver as our new commissioner. Thank you. It's the first time we clapped, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right. Good trend.
Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, August 2nd.
Thank you. And approval of the minutes from June 4th.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Consent agenda. Business.
Resolution PC 042, 2019, approval of a two-lot extraterritorial certified survey map for the Jensen property located in the town of Waterford. Resolution 045, 2019, approval of a three-lot certified survey map for the Miles property located along Parker Drive and Racine Avenue. Resolution PC 046, 2019, approval of a four-lot certified survey map for a portion of the Miles property located along Parker Drive and Racine Avenue. Resolution PC 048, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan for Steve Stack, Northfield Green, Lot 13 on Princeton Court.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve and gross?
To approve. Engross.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? They are approved unanimously. And then we have new business for consideration, Resolution PC 41, 2019, recommendation to Common Council to rezone a property from B4 Highway Business District to M1 Light Industrial District for PJ's Trucking LLC, located on North Cape Road.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. Give me 1 second here. My computer's giving me trouble.
Sure.
All right, there we go. So this item in front of you tonight is rezoning from B4 to M1. This item had a public hearing in front of the Common Council at their last meeting on July 23rd. The rezoning in general is for a change, includes a comprehensive plan, from commercial uses to industrial. And it's for a future business use of storage of trucks and trailers and material storage for a business known as PJ's Trucking, who is currently located just 2 properties to the south of this on North Cape Road. At the public hearing, there were 5 people that spoke opposed to the request and 2 people that spoke in favor. The general concerns of those members are listed in your supplement. If the commissioners want me to go through those, I gladly can. Otherwise, they'll be in the supplement ahead of you. Some of the general concerns, if I really summarize them briefly, were relating to traffic concerns, relating to concern of the proximity to residential areas, concerns with wanting business in this area, concerns with noise, talking about other industrial areas that were there, talking about uses that would look good and be safe. Some of the comments in favor of these were relating to that retail would cause more traffic and that this would actually potentially have less traffic. The business hires professional drivers and holds safety meetings. Trucks don't come and go, they leave early in the morning. And when they come in at night, they're backed in at night, so they're not backing up in the morning with no backup alarms. The business is currently in the neighborhood and doesn't have problems. There were some concerns brought up about salt, and those are only dropped off in winter. And the owner is willing to screen with fencing, berming, landscaping the business. Alderman Kubaki brought up at at Common Council, if there was a way to rezone just for one use or this use, or a way to allow a conditional use for this. I did talk with the city attorney about that, and you can't just pick a zoning for one use. It's considered conditional zoning, which is something that the city definitely doesn't like to do and continue on being illegal. So if you rezone it to M1, it's for any M1. Now, as you change users, new users need plan commission approval, and depending on if, that has to be allowed in the M1 to be allowed here. So each use does need plan commission approval, but the zoning can't be just for one person. And then as far as conditional use grants, the conditional use grants are only allowed for uses that the code specifically identifies, so this couldn't be in a B4 with a conditional use grant. The only zoning that would allow this would be the M1 zoning. So the Plan Commission will have to discuss this tonight. Like I said, if you want me to comment any more on any of the comments that came up, but in your submittal was all the comments as well as kind of the city's response to those items, but I can cover any of those if you wanted to. And then the Plan Commission will have to decide how they want to make their recommendation tonight.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions or?
I have a question. What other uses are permitted under M1? And the reason I'm asking the question is I'm not concerned about the current operator. I'm concerned about the next operator.
It's things that you would maybe think of as typical lighter industrial is probably the best way to put it. The code talks about things like not allowing foundries and things like that as that heavier type of use, but could be things you could expect to see like in a kind of business park type use. So like the park that's across the street is a similar type of zoning. So what you see in the park across the street, any of those types of users could potentially be there. It's a pretty wide range of uses, as well as it allows anything that is in the commercial districts under it also.
And as far as the commercial zoning, I know a strip mall would probably be the thing in the ideal thing for that corner, but there is no access on Loomis Road.
Correct. Our mapping system up until pretty recently identified this as right-of-way. It didn't even really call it a lot. Because the state DOT has owned it for a long, long time. Since I've been here, the state DOT has owned it. And they've used it for staging on different state road projects. I think the state finally realized they didn't need it, and I could be wrong, but from the parts that I heard, the state originally approached adjacent landowners. Maybe I heard a little bit wrong, was what I heard was that they approached adjacent landowners first to say, to either of you adjacent landowners want it. And I don't know for what kind of cost or what kind of provisions they wanted as part of that. And from my understanding, from what I heard, there were no takers on that at the time. So that's, I think, why they put it out there. I don't know if the owner approached them or the state approached the owner, but the owner got paired up with them and was the first person that's ever tried to make something work here. We've had some proposals for gas stations on the northeast and southeast corner. We had a car dealership proposed on the northeast corner, the same intersection. Some of those approvals were denied, or some of those requests were denied. Some were approved, but no one ever actually was willing to put a shovel into the ground as far as owners go.
Thanks. Adam, any other questions?
Yeah, what are the zoning codes now for the, let's say, across the street to the east? And you mentioned the northeast corner. What are those zoned?
They're zoned like a commercial, like a B4, which is what this was or currently is zoned
So
today.
everything right now is B4?
In that general area, yeah. If you go a little bit, I don't know, a couple blocks or maybe a mile or half mile south on North Cape, maybe about a mile, there are some industrial zonings there, and then there's landfill zoning because of the landfill, but most of it's business in between.
And there are those that don't want it to be retail, because that does drive more traffic. So, any other questions? Okay, with that, all those in favor of PC 41? Please cast your vote. Sorry, you're waiting for me to say, I'm like, what are you waiting for?
Aaron,
We don't have a button?
No.
No.
we don't.
Why are you looking for a button?
Because we haven't had one since we moved in
Yeah,
here.
since we moved in here.
Oh, you were looking for one.
Because you didn't say.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
I'm opposed.
Okay, one in opposition. Thank you. Okay, and then we have PC 43, 2019, recommendation to Common Council to rezone a portion of a property from A1 Agricultural District to B4 Highway Business District for All-Star Rental LLC on Loomis and Muskego Dam Road. Do you want me to call it the other one too, or not? Because we have to go one at a time anyhow.
Yeah, they're two separate items.
Okay, go ahead.
Move
Oh, wait,
to
we need,
approve.
sorry, thank you. A second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All right, Adam, now you can go ahead.
Thank you. Let's make my notes here. All right, this request is for rezoning from A1 to B4 Highway Business District. It's for All-Star Rentals. This property, or a similar version of it, came in front of you guys last year, around a very similar time. At that time, the rezoning request was for a smaller piece of land, and since that time, the owner has realized that there's a part of this lot next door that he doesn't want to miss out on. So as such, he's asking for the same use, the same type of zoning, just asking for it in a slightly larger area. And the reason for that, like I said, now it's approximately 13.5 acres instead of 8, just because the owner knows if he doesn't rezone and buy the land now, he might lose it in the future, and he wants to make sure he doesn't kind of pigeonhole himself into one size lot in case he needs future expansion. Like I said, it's for All-Star Rentals. They're currently located just a little bit east of this site, and they do different rentals for parties and catering and bounce houses and all that kind of stuff, and their business is growing exponentially. So they are anxious and excited to build here. So this rezoning, like I said, part of the site already has it. They're really just now asking for it on the rest of the site, and their next step would be then a land division, which would come at a future date, along with their actual building site and operation plan, which would cover all of their building design and site details. The public hearing for this was held on the same day. There were no concerns raised at that time. I did receive one email comment from a neighbor who lives just southeast of this, and they didn't have an issue with the project. They just wanted to make sure that when the site is developed and built on it, they have sufficient adequate screening to respect their views of the site. So that's been noted, and that would be looked at as part of a future building site and operation plan.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Are there any questions related to this resolution? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved unanimously. Resolution PC 44, 2019, recommendation to Common Council to rezone a property, it's spelled wrong, property and a portion of second property from A1 Agricultural District to B4 Highway Business District for Brian Hrin, located on Loomis Drive and Loomis Road.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So as was mentioned, this rezoning here is for same zoning as the last one, A1 to B4. It's actually located on the other half, the western half of the property in the last request, as well as the adjacent lot to the west. These, as well as that last one, the future land use plan does identify all these as commercial. So what they're asking for here is definitely in line with that comprehensive plan. This use that Mr. Wren is looking for is mini storage units. So this is not looking at, I think there's some confusion because the gentleman owns currently an asphalt business. This is not for the asphalt business. This is strictly, just happens to be the same owner. This person is strictly asking for a use that would be mini storage units on this property. If they would ever want to do any kind of like heavy trucking or anything like that, which they're not asking for, that would be a separate zoning, separate request, separate time. But at the public hearing, there were no comments raised relating to the use itself. There was one person who asked about how they kind of get their lot zoned to something similar, which they did contact our office and we can help guide them down the road. But for this request, staff did not see any issues as it is in line with the future land use plan. They too will have to come back for buildings and operation plan and even maybe a conditional use grant, I believe.
Okay, thanks again, Adam. Any questions?
Access to the properties off of Old Loomis Road?
This property here will have a little access point that goes on to, Loomis Drive, Old Loomis. They'll also have frontage on to Highway 36. Now, the plan, the thought is when the CSM is done that splits this lot from the lot next door, is that lot next door, also rentals, is going to be coming off of, I think it's Muskego Dam there technically, that city road. There's going to have to be like an access easement. So there'll probably be an access point even through on this site via an easement to Muskego Dam Road, as well as there is one existing access to the state highway here. The state may still allow that to remain, we're not sure yet, but they will also have even third potential on, the Old Loomis Road. So this site could have a couple access points. It kind of depends on what the state's going to allow along 36. But there is an access there already. They may allow that to become a full access. I'm not sure yet. When they do the CSM and the site approval, that's when that would be looked at further.
So they come off of old, or off,
So this site and the site to the east of it, All Star Rentals, are going to have a driveway. It's going to be, think of like a frontage road. There's going to be a frontage road kind of type scenario.
Okay, I
You know,
got you.
coming off of as far east as we can on Muskego Dam as to not be too close to the intersection. That will then service All Star Rentals and this property. That will be like probably the main access. And then the state may allow something additional along 36, they may not. I don't expect this user to probably actually access off of the old Loomis Road, as it's probably not going to be too feasible, because it might be a long road that goes nowhere. Plus, it looks like there might be some environmental down there. So just because it touches the road doesn't mean that the access may or may not work there.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
The blue implies water.
Some kind of hydrography feature, yeah. So I mean, it's not perfect, but yeah, it tells you it's probably something wet there, or at certain seasons there might be. It's not perfect, though.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is approved unanimously. Brings us to Resolution PC 47, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan for the neighbor group along Loomis Road.
Move to approve?
I'll second.
Thank you. And Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. This request, like I said, is for a building site operation plan amendment. This is the site that used to be the house, the home to Fry Automotive before they built their building to the north of this property. The gentleman is looking at it, using it right now, wants to use it to operate his business out of. His business involves exterior construction, landscaping, snow removal, stuff like that. And he's looking to have a place to house some equipment, kind of set up shop. What they're looking at doing is he's looking at utilizing the existing building, and he's going to use some of the shop space to house some of his equipment and supplies and materials. And then on the area of the lot that would be south of the building is where the cars that used to be for sale were housed. He's looking at installing a 6-foot-tall wood fence in that area. And that area then would enclose any outdoor parking of materials that he'd want to have on that site. As part of it, like I said, there'll be no other outdoor storage. Anything that would be outside on the property would either be in that fenced area or in the building, hence the overhead garage doors allow him that use. Couple things that are worth noting, the site right now has kind of gotten overgrown and messy and stuff like that. So, the owner has talked about this, and we also have in the resolution that, that the whole site does need to be cleaned up and taken care of, which will, a little TLC to that building will go a long way and, help that building become viable for some kind of purpose, again, help the tax base. As well as one of the things that we noted on the site, and this has come from the alderman of this district a few times, is there's some questionable drums of material on the site that have been, and then we don't know if they're relating to former gas use or whatever, but one of the things that we're requiring as part of this use is making sure that the owners work with, the operator works with the owner and works with the DNR to figure out what's out there to get it properly cleaned up and removed from the site once and for all. So hopefully this will serve as a good cleanup, and that's something we'll hold occupancy up until that is taken care of properly. It's not a lot, but there's a few out there, and we don't want that out there, especially if we don't know what it is. A couple other things that are worth noting is the resolution does note that staff is recommending an annual review for this property for the fall of 2020. So the logic behind that time frame was we normally do a lot of our annual reviews in spring. Well, by the time this owner gets everything set up, we might be close to spring, or that he might not be there long enough to really see how the operations work. We just want to make sure that everything works well and that nothing gets out of control. So we'll do a review in the fall of 2020, which I think we have another user. I think it's when Fry Automotive actually is. So we figure we'll do them at the same time. At that time of that annual review, if the use is good and Plan Commission wants to remove that requirement, they can. And if they want to keep it, they can. But at least we'll give us kind of a one-time check about a year and a half from now then, to see how things are going out there. Otherwise, staff was recommending approval.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Are there any questions?
Be nice to get that cleaned up. Yeah, awfully nice.
Yeah, I agree. Good to see it cleaned up. The fence itself, I didn't see any details in here identifying exactly how the fence is constructed. Is it assumed that they'll be working with staff to provide those details?
Yeah, they just noted right now, 6-foot-tall dog-eared wood privacy fence. But yeah, we'd like to get us some kind of spec.
So it's not opaque or have openings in it or something?
Yeah.
Right, obviously. So, okay.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved unanimously. Resolution PC 49, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan for Alliance Construction and Design located along Janesville Road. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
And Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. So this use here is a kind of a transformation of use. It's a request for a building site and operation plan for, I think it's called Your Auto Wash right now, if my memory serves me correct. It's located on Janesville Road, just kind of down a few properties from the library. It currently houses a car wash facility. I think it has 2 or 3 automatic car wash bays and a couple self-service bays. A new owner bought the property not too long ago, and now they're looking at definitely changing the use, cleaning the property up. First and foremost, they're looking at discontinuing the car wash use in all the bays except for the easternmost car bay. They are proposing to keep that one automated car wash bay open. And then the rest of the building, along with the 2,100 square foot addition, is proposed to house a laundromat. Muskego Laundry is kind of what we're calling it at this point, as well as 2 additional tenant spaces. So there would be 3 users plus the car wash in this building when it would be all said and done. There are no specific users for the tenant spaces known at this time. Obviously, those would need approvals when they're ready and when whoever that is knows who they are once they lease those spaces out. This site too kind of needs a bunch of TLC, so this is a huge, huge improvement for what we see out there. There's going to be a lot of work done to the building. You'll see from the renderings that are in your packet and the site plan. It won't even look like the same building when it's done. They're utilizing a lot of the open bays to be nice full glass areas, so a lot of glass. They're adding some stonework. They are reutilizing some of the existing masonry that's there, and that's one thing we have noted in the resolution is when the permit would come in wanting to have some details of kind of what they're doing to help clean up or paint those existing masonry areas so they don't look dingy or anything. But they're adding a lot of new material to the building on itself. In general, it meets all the typical zoning setbacks, offsets, things such as that. It is governed by the design guide and definitely has a lot of the features that the design guide looks to see on that building. So there's really no questions that were there. One thing that we always know is a hot button issue is screening of mechanicals. So we brought that up to them early on in their design process. So they, in the addition of the building, they're actually doing like a recessed area of their roof that's going to house the mechanicals. So they seem to be confident that that will adequately screen everything, and the resolution stating that if that doesn't, they'll have to add something additional. But the plan is that that recessed area should house all the equipment properly. As far as the site goes, like I said, they are still keeping the access to the car wash as it sits today, kind of coming around that far east end of the site. The site plan shows 32 parking stalls total on the site. And with the parking requirement of the code, if we take the whole area of the building, not counting the car wash, they are short a few parking stalls. But when you take away the service areas of the laundromats, like the employee-only areas, which we normally would do because the parking is based on customer size, they're actually right at the right number. And that's assuming that the retail spaces have no employee space. If those retail spaces start including employee space, like back rooms or whatever it might be, which I'm sure they will, that will have even more parking then. So the parking does meet the code requirement. As far as parking stalls go, they are asking for the reduction in some depth on the stalls in the back of the building, and this is to make sure that they can allow a wide enough drive aisle and still have a 3-foot rear offset for the parking drive. There is a fence that's behind this building right now that separates them from the residential use behind them. That fence has kind of been in disrepair over the years. The owners touched up a few spots of it to kind of help with that, but their plan now is to remove that entire fence and put in a whole new solid PVC or vinyl style fence. We think that will be a good improvement. It will look a lot better, look a lot more current, and it won't look as faded and dated like the wood that's currently there does. Because the fence is there, they are asking to have a 3-foot parking separation, which the code can allow. Normally it talks about 10 when you have a separation from residential to commercial, but the idea of that is usually so you can provide landscaping if you're not having screening. The code allows and the Plan Commission has allowed a 3-foot many times before, as long as there's solid screening like there is proposed in this scenario. As far as otherwise, all the drive aisles and other parking stalls do appear to meet what the code would require. Now, one thing that the site plan does not include, which is curb and gutter on the site, and especially along Janesville Road, any kind of more developed area in the city or any area that's a little more urban and less rural or less suburban, the city historically has looked to see or ask for curbing on sites for aesthetic purposes, kind of keep cars contained, help everything look clean and neat, keep everyone where they're supposed to be, protect things like the fence if need be a little bit. And because the developer is proposing as part of the project to replace all the paving on site, staff does have in the resolution that the site should provide vertical face curb and gutter along all exteriors of the site and then kind of by the entry and exit of the car wash. So that is something that is in the resolution. If that's something the Planning Commission doesn't agree with, we can definitely talk about that, but that has been historical practice anytime someone's redoing parking lots for a full site, especially when they're doing new development as part of it. There is a dumpster enclosure proposed. It's the same screening material that is along that back fence, so it should blend in. They are showing some additional landscaping in some areas. Final landscape plan would be reviewed at a later date, and we'll make sure that there is ample landscaping around the transformers and such also. They do identify some basic sign areas, and we'll just make sure that any signage meets the normal signage requirements. They have not provided any lighting details, but they would have to do so at the time of permitting, and that would have to meet all the general city specs. As far as operational hours go, the laundromat itself has stated that their hours would be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., which that's the current facility's hours, which is located elsewhere that the owner owns. And the city doesn't really see any issues with that as it's an indoor business. So other than a car door or something, you're not going to really hear much beyond those times. Plan Commission could discuss that though, but we typically don't regulate business hours for indoor operations. Historically, the Plan Commission hasn't. Now, one thing that they didn't talk about was the car wash hours, and given the idea of the doors being open with the dryer and things like that, staff thought it would be a good idea to probably put some kind of restrictions as far as time to the car wash bay. So the times that we picked were from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. The 7 a.m. was determined by our typical construction hours. That's the hours that construction's normally limited to on weekdays. So that's where we kind of picked that time, and then 10 p.m. was just the time that we kind of thought was probably late enough. But that can be something the Plan Commission could talk about if they want to change those hours or not. But other than that, we are recommending approval subject to these items that we noted.
Thank you, and I might have a question. What are because the car wash is there now, what hours are they operating now? No restrictions?
I don't know if they have, if they restrict themselves. This site's been around for a long time. There aren't good approvals in the file. I mean, they clearly have approvals, but I don't think times were ever talked about originally.
Okay, thanks.
Is there
Question?
We have similar car washes up and down Janesville though, so what hours are they open? I mean,
we don't have them where they directly abut up against the residential property, where the exit. I know one of them, the dryers face opposite where houses are, and there's a street separating them. And I know we have another one where they enter from the back and they dry facing the street. Now, given this layout, without redoing the entire configuration of the car wash, unless they entered in the back and exit in the front, so the dryers would be in the front, it would probably be a little less of a concern then. But because they enter in the front and go to the back, so when the dryers are blowing and the car's leaving, they're probably only 30 or so feet from that neighbor's back lot line. So that's why we thought hours might be beneficial for the car wash, given the proximity to, literally, their back lot line shares with someone's backyard. So that property, if you look at the map on the screen, that would be kind of on the bottom or the southeast. That's a residential backyard right there. Now, they do have the fence. That's going to block a lot of the sound, but that's definitely something the Plan Commission can talk about.
so they're gonna enter the car wash from the Janesville side.
Yeah, that's how they do it now.
Yeah, and you have all the businesses, they're gonna have them parking along that face.
The businesses parking can be on both sides of the building.
Seems odd. It seems odd that you'll have, as Wisconsinites do, they all wait for nice weather, which doesn't happen very often, and they all line up all the way across the face of their building. And then they're going to go into the car wash, exit out of the back. It's going to be very congested potentially as it goes in there.
Yeah, that was a question we've kind of talked a little bit about with the applicant about. I mean, they cognizant of that too. It's hard to predict how busy this will be versus any other car wash, but
This seems odd.
yeah. And the applicant wants to say anything on that. I don't know if you have any comments you want to. Yeah, that was the proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the things that you could do is you could require, I mean, they could be blocking a few parking stalls. I mean, that would be how it'd be set up now, and you do have cars. The difference between now and this layout is you wouldn't have the cars facing Janesville Road right now. Exiting's not an issue. You exit, you're gone.
Right.
Those cars back there, there's enough width for two-way travel. It gets unique when you get in the front there, but they did make that drive aisle wider than a normal drive aisle to help accommodate a little bit.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, if you have probably more than 2 or 3 cars, because I mean, the diagram, the cars are spaced pretty far apart. If you had more than 2 or 3 cars, you might start blocking a few of the spots along Janesville Road, but that's looking at like a max capacity then,
Sure.
as far as the parking
Okay.
probably goes.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I do have another. So sometimes in these developments, we see the condition where the driveway is too close to the intersection. This one, obviously, it looks like that driveway cut remains. Has that been looked at? Is that?
The county allowed it, the county doesn't buy it, they can't just take it from them, and they're keeping the exact access that they have today. And this was the county even had to redo some of it for them when they did the road project.
Okay.
So they're keeping
So they
everything
won't-
exactly as it is.
So essentially, they won't lose that drive entrance as far as we know it. We haven't had a lot of problems with traffic there.
No.
Currently, and I guess, nothing's really changing with that car wash. I understand what you're saying about the concern with the parking and the obstruction there, but if that's the traffic flow, I guess it kind of doesn't change, so.
It already
Obviously, there'll be
exists.
more cars in here now with it being a laundromat and tenant spaces, but.
I just want to add that it's a beautiful building.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Going to be a really nice addition to the area. Are there any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is approved unanimously. Resolution PC 50, 2019, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for an accessory structure at the Stony Creek Lutherans for elderly located Test Corners Drive.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Adam?
Thanks, Mayor.
Tell us what it is before we
We're
discuss
moving
it.
along.
12 by 20 accessory building. Basically, this Stony Creek campus is looking at installing an accessory building to just keep maintenance equipment on for stuff on their property. They already have one outbuilding. This is going to be very similar in colors and material to the outbuilding. The siding is going to be very similar to the color of the siding on the main building. The only reason it's here is because they are multifamily, which is treated the same as commercial when it comes to planning commission. They need approval for an outbuilding. We don't foresee any issues with it. The only thing they noted that was a little bit different was a metal roof, which, as we know, normally we want roofs to match the main building. They've stated that this roof will match an existing shed they already have, so at least the outbuildings will be cohesive with material. One thing that was noted that we just think was worth talking to the planning commission about is there were some comments about they're using a metal roof because that's what the supplier supplies, that's it. And we want to be very clear, I think for the record, that we're not approving it, or if it gets approved, not because that's all the manufacturer makes, because there's millions of manufacturers. It's because it fits with what's on the existing site. It's a very limited view, and we think it'll be a nice addition to this site.
Understood. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is approved unanimously. Any miscellaneous business?
Nothing at this time.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.